is out in full swing in theaters now, and this is going to be a spoiler-filled review for The Batman, the newest take on the iconic Cape Crusader, the Dark Knight himself. Proceed with extreme caution if you have not seen The Batman and you do not want to be spoiled. You don't have to proceed with caution for my spoiler-free review, which I have done. I will leave in the description below and at the end of this video. You can check that out if you don't want to be spoiled, but right now, collect $200 if you passed go. Proceed full speed through that traffic light for spoilers for The Batman. And this is going to be very similar to how I did my No Way Home spoiler review, my Matrix Resurrection spoiler review. I think I found a niche for a format for spoiler reviews, kind of in chronological order. I used to jump around all over the place. Might do some jumping around here, but not to the extent that I used to. The movie opens up with this really interesting shot. We see Riddler looking at a mansion in Gotham City through the lens of binoculars, and we find out that this is actually the mayor of Gotham, Mitchell, who is up for re-election, and the Riddler has infiltrated his house. He's a home invader, and he sadistically kills Mitchell. The Riddler is a serial killer, and he is leaving notes for Batman at the crime scenes, and this really sets the tone for the entire movie. This is not going to be a very action-heavy movie. This is going to be more of a detective Batman, a neo-noir, detective noir, one of those old-school crime mysteries that asks you to have patience and go with the twists as they unfold, and Gordon and the rest of GCPD and Batman arrive on the crime scene. Now, I like Batman a lot in this movie. Bruce Wayne is Batman for about, I would say, 95% of the movie. We don't see Bruce Wayne in a lot of this movie, where he's just acting as Bruce Wayne. And I think that was one of my nitpicks with the movie. We didn't really get to see Robert Pattinson play those different sides of Bruce Wayne that are integral to the character of Bruce Wayne and Batman. We only really got to see him play Batman. We didn't see him play Bruce Wayne in the public eye. We sort of saw him play Bruce Wayne around Alfred, but he kind of acted like Bruce Wayne in the public eye, where he was a dick to Alfred. How dare you? That's Alfred. That's your butler, man. Andy Serkis as Alfred, I liked him. I didn't see enough of him, though, to say, oh, hey, where does he rank in terms of my Alfreds, you know? I'm pretty sure as the trilogy goes on, we're going to see more of Alfred. We're going to see more of Bruce as Bruce and in the public eye and around Alfred. I really hope that that's the case. But the movie really lives up to its title. It is The Batman. This is Batman's movie. It's his second year of crime fighting, and his introductory scene where he just takes out all those thugs on Halloween, which is another thing. We get Bruce Wayne narrating some events in the background of what's going on in Gotham City. We know that this takes place around Halloween, the long Halloween. So I immediately thought when that happened, that when he said it was Halloween, I was like, oh, the Riddler's gonna kill somebody, one of Gotham's elite or rich billionaire or whoever it may be, on a given holiday, and they're just going to do a soft adaptation of the long Halloween. But it's more than just the long Halloween. Halloween and a holiday like Halloween is only mentioned once. So you know that it does take place around Halloween, but the killings themselves don't take place. Like, one doesn't take place on Halloween, the next one doesn't take place on Thanksgiving. We have no idea. We just know it's in that time frame. And I think that Halloween is a great setting for a Batman film. And when Batman shows up, his first scene, just him wrecking a bunch of thugs. And the best Batman intro scenes I've ever seen, with that new Batman theme by Michael Giacchino, which is so good. Plays a lot throughout the entire 2-hour and 56-minute runtime of this movie. He's just wrecking thugs, going to town on them, and then he goes to the crime scene, meet with Lieutenant Gordon. Gordon in this movie, I really liked Jeffrey Wright as Gordon. The thing is that Gordon is, I think, one of the weaker characters in this movie. They don't dive into Gordon a lot, but the dynamic between Gordon, the GCPD, and Batman, I think, is very well realized. I like that Batman already has this established relationship with Gordon, and that Gordon is somebody that Batman can trust, and Batman is someone that Gordon can trust. Those two have that connective tissue there, and GCPD really hates Batman, and they don't really like Gordon all that much. Yes, I can take Gordon being like the truest, most dedicated cop amongst a slew of a million different dirty cops as character development in this. I hope we get more with Gordon because I really like Jeffrey Wright. I mean, as you guys know, I'm a big James Bond fan. Loved him as Felix Leiter in the Daniel Craig Bond movies, and I loved him in everything I've seen him in. And I really do like him as Gordon, but I just don't think Gordon's character is that fleshed out in this movie. But again, nitpick. I ain't pulling a Geeks and Gamers where they're like, yeah, well, Gordon is black. Oh my god, I can't believe that. No, I'm not one of those idiots like them over there. I don't care what the race of Gordon is. Make him white, make him black. Cool. As long as I feel like the character of Gordon is still there, I'm okay with it. Jeffrey Wright's a great Gordon. That cult following like Geeks and Gamers has, I don't know how they get away with it, but they do. I don't usually call out people on this channel. Kind of feels good to call out idiots, though. But with Gordon, you also have the commissioner of GCPD, Savage, who berates Gordon for teaming up with Batman, because, like I said, all of GCPD essentially hates Batman. They're like, why are you working with this dude? And the Riddler brutally kills that guy, leaves another riddle for Batman at the crime scene. There's definitely connective tissue between the Riddler and the Batman, and at this point in the movie where we've seen 2 letters left for Batman at a crime scene, you definitely know that something's up with the Riddler, and something with Batman is connected to both of them. As we start to get more into the plot, let's talk about Catwoman, because I really enjoyed Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman. I think she's one of the best Catwoman. I'm still not 100% sure, after seeing the movie twice, if she is better than Anne Hathaway. She might match Anne Hathaway. I still think Michelle Pfeiffer is the most iconic Catwoman, but in terms of character, though, I mean, I don't really remember Michelle Pfeiffer being fleshed out as Selina Kyle all that much. Anne Hathaway was a great character, but I think this Selina Kyle is the Selina Kyle I got to know the most, and I really like that, and I also really like Catwoman's outfit in this movie, her costume, and I like her first interaction with Batman, because Selina Kyle in this movie is on a mission. She's trying to find her missing roommate, Annika, and Batman and Gordon had discovered that there was this thumb drive in Mitchell's car that had connected him to a woman in this club called the Iceberg Lounge, and that woman just happened to be Selina Kyle's roommate, Annika. So I like the idea that she has to team up with Batman because they have a common goal, but her goal isn't the same as Batman. Batman is just trying to take down the Riddler. He's working with Gordon to take down the Riddler. Selina Kyle is essentially just looking for her roommate because she's wondering what happened to her, but what I like is that the movie actually connects Catwoman's plotline and Batman and Gordon's plotline to the main plotline so that they have to team up, but Catwoman has her set of goals where if she accomplishes them, she's just going to abandon Batman. Love that. Love that about this Catwoman. I think that this is the most fleshed out Catwoman we've seen, and she's also a waitress at the Iceberg Lounge, and Penguin, Cobblepot, Colin Farrell, fucking best Penguin. He works at the Iceberg Lounge as well. In that clip that's been released where Batman and Selina Kyle first meet and they're in Mitchell's house and he sees the passport of Annika and they have that brief fight, really great scene. And I love how that leads Batman to realize that, well, you know what? This guy Savage, the commissioner of the GCPD, he was on Carmine Falcone's payroll as his district attorney, Gil Colson. Yeah, no Harvey Dent, Gil Colson. This really showcases just what idiots and dirty scum cops work in the GCPD. And I love it. Let's talk about the Penguin, because the Penguin isn't your typical Danny DeVito type of guy. No, he's really like this gangster that seems like he has a higher place in the crime world, but essentially works under Carmine Falcone. Is it Falcone or Falcone? Because the Dark Knight trilogy says Falcone, this movie says Falcone. I'm just going to call him Falcone. But I love the way that Penguin is operating in this movie. Basically, the crime family, the Maronis, that have been in lots of Batman media, even in The Long Halloween. Part 1 of The Long Halloween was so good. It involved the Maronis. They're just background name drops in this movie, but I like that their presence is still felt, because Penguin and his goons from the GCPD, are essentially still operating Maroni's drug ring. And so he's acting as the leader, and Batman and Selina Kyle find out about that, and leads to one of the greatest sequences in a Batman film, and that is the car chase. Love this car chase. It was really a good middle point of the movie. It broke up a lot of the investigating stuff to have this exhilarating, high-octane chase through the streets of Gotham. I really loved it. Every shot in this sequence is just, it's meticulously shot. It is so carefully planned. I love Penguin's reaction when he thinks that he got Batman. Oh, I got you! You freaking psycho! I got you! And you just see the Batmobile come out of the fire. That is all practical stuff. As far as I know, I don't think any CGI was involved. I love it when movies can actually use practicality to their advantage instead of just saying, hey, let's just create this scene on a program on our computers. There's just something more visceral about it when it's practical effects, and I love that about that scene. And let's talk about that Batmobile for a minute. Yeah, that's a pretty fucking cool Batmobile. Gives the Tumbler a run for its money. I still think I prefer the Tumbler, but does the Tumbler have a jet engine in the back that when that thing powers up, the entire theater shook? I don't know. I think the Bat did from The Dark Knight Rises, but this thing, man, that jet engine, when that thing was powering up, I could feel my seat shaking. I could feel everybody in the audience just gasp and go, both viewings of my movie, everybody was like, yeah, it's on now. And that leads to that great car chase. Probably my favorite sequence in the entire movie. I guess background for this is that whole funeral scene is from Mitchell, and then Coulson comes in a car, and that's that whole funeral scene that's been released where you actually see the car hit the church, because if that was any other director except for maybe Nolan, I think that car would have been shown, like we would have seen dead on shots of that car, and it would have just gone back and forth between the people in the church and the car coming towards the church. Instead, you just briefly hear that car coming into the church, and then I guess the background for what leads into that Penguin's chase sequence is that the Riddler has the district attorney, Coulson, strapped to a bomb, and he is forced to answer 3 riddles, which Batman helps him with 2 of them. But the third one is to name the informant that ended Salvatore Maroni's drug operation, and that leads to that car chase, because that's when Batman and Selina Kyle find out that his operation is still going strong, and it's run by the Penguin. Penguin is a dirty man. In terms of the chase, though, and where the story's going, it kind of sort of makes Penguin inconsequential in this moment. It's just, hey, cool action scene with Penguin, because he's not the informant. So now we have to entangle that with Riddler's plan. And let's talk about the actual plot and Riddler's plan. So the plot of this movie revolves around the Riddler being a serial killer and murdering Gotham's elite. He's going around and murdering people that have connections to the Waynes. So the Waynes in this movie, we don't see the Waynes die like we have in previous iterations of Batman. Thank God, because it's a bit of a tired storyline, and I love that we already start the movie with Batman as Batman. It's his second year of crime fighting. But you can tell that there was something festering deep beneath Bruce Wayne, and when he and Gordon stumble on a new crime scene at an orphanage, or when their investigation leads them to an orphanage that has since been closed, they find out that that orphanage was operated by Thomas and Martha Wayne, Bruce's parents, and that the Riddler, whose name is Edward Nashton, was an orphan there. And for some reason, he holds a grudge against the Wayne family, but we really don't know why, and it turns out that the Riddler has evidence that Thomas Wayne paid off this journalist and potentially had Carmine Falcone kill this journalist, because this journalist was threatening to reveal Martha Wayne's mental illness, and this was at a time when Thomas Wayne was up for election for mayor. So we get one of the few scenes in the movie, and this is after Alfred almost dies. He's in the hospital, and Bruce confronts him because he thought that his father was really an upstanding man. He thought that his father was essentially God, like perfect. But Alfred essentially confirms that, you know, yes, stuff like this did happen. Thomas Wayne essentially just intimidated the journalist and then learned that Falcone murdered this journalist, and then he turned Falcone into the police. So this leads Bruce to believe that his parents were killed by Falcone because of this. Okay, this is going a little bit against Batman lore, because in Batman lore, we know that Bruce was with his parents. They were coming out of a theater, and a thug named Joe Chill killed Batman's parents. This isn't It goes against Batman lore, but I'm okay with it because we need to do something a little bit different with Batman lore. And especially where Martha Wayne was hinted to have an illness in this movie, a mental illness, that's a little bit different as well. This has been, so far, really a Seven meets Zodiac type of neo-noir thriller, where it's not a very action-heavy movie, but the vibe you get is very David Finchery. There's not a lot of twists in the story up until now. It's a very straightforward detective story, and usually the best Batman stories for me are the ones that have a lot of moving parts. Here, it just feels very simple, and I guess this is a nitpick as well. It's not a huge problem I have with the movie. It's just the Riddler holding a grudge against the Waynes for not keeping the orphanage open, and then exposing that evidence where it's like, oh hey, maybe Thomas Wayne wasn't as good of a father as you thought. Let's talk about Falcone for a minute, because there's a reveal here that he is actually Selina Kyle's father, which I sat in the theater and said, that's a little strange that Selina Kyle is the daughter of Carmine Falcone, but okay, I can roll with that. It's here we learn that Falcone was Maroni's informant, and Mitchell had found out, and he had told her that her father was Maroni's informant. I love Bruce Wayne in the scene. I love some of the dialogue that Falcone just spews at Bruce Wayne, because he shows up in the Iceberg Lounge as Bruce Wayne with Penguin in the background. Keep an eye on Penguin. But then later, he also sneaks into the Iceberg Lounge as Bruce Wayne and sneaks his way in like spy style. Becomes Batman, has a really cool action scene where he takes out a bunch of thugs and the only lighting in the scene is their guns going off. Really great fight scene. But then he and Gordon arrest Falcone. But Falcone, as he's being brought out of the Iceberg Lounge, is he shot by the Riddler or is he shot by Penguin? That's what I want to know. And it's here where we learn what Riddler's motivation is. He was envious of the sympathy that Bruce Wayne received, and then he was just kind of like left to rot on the side of the road. Like, he was just essentially ignored. But I mean, Thomas Wayne was the mayor. Like, what was Edward Nashton in this point? He was just an orphan boy. Like, he didn't really come from anything. The thing is that I love that this complexity is haunting the Riddler. Like, the Riddler believes that he is so much more important than Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne had a high social and economic standing. Edward Nashton doesn't. But Edward Nashton thinks that he deserves the recognition that both Batman and Bruce Wayne do. And the thing is that Edward Nashton, the Riddler, knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman. I love that idea. In order to become noticed, he wanted to partner with Batman and become a masked vigilante, which is why he's all dressed in, like, it looks like duct tape essentially, but also looks like the Zodiac Killer. So Batman's just like, no, fuck you, I don't buy that. Which is also really weird because when you actually think about it, the plot of this movie just involves Riddler killing people because he's jealous that Bruce Wayne got noticed and he didn't, and now he wants to get noticed. And I understand that people are going to be like, well, it's him just trying to expose the lies and the corruption in Gotham City, and I get that. From a narrative standpoint, that's very clear, but if you dig deeper beneath the surface of that plot line, him exposing Gotham's elite for telling so many lies, and all of the political figures for telling lies, like, below all of that, it's mostly just, I want to get noticed, blah, 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 blah. I just think that's kind of weak, but you gotta roll with the punches with this movie, you know? But then Batman finds out that the Riddler has cultivated an online following and has essentially created a cult, and now there are car bombs throughout the city, and that cult is going to try and kill the newly elected mayor at a rally, and Batman has to go stop him. And this was my main issue with the movie, because up until this point, it was really detective, neo-noir based, and now this third act, with all this happening, as cool as it was and as good as it was, I still think it's a really good third act. It just dove further into superhero comic book territory, but I love Batman having to shimmy across rafters, and he's fighting all these Riddler goons on the rafters, and then these bombs blow up, and it's causing Gotham Square Garden, which is essentially Madison Square Garden, to be flooded, and Batman is trying to save people. I love the looks on people's faces. They're like, is this guy here to help us, or is he actually here to kill us? But you see that Batman is actually helping all these people. And I believe you had the Batman theme playing again. It's just a very heroic moment for Batman, and I love that the most about this finale. But the rest of that finale, just it felt like a giant action scene because it was, hey, this is a superhero movie. We have to have this, but it also feels like at this point the movie is running a little bit too long because once GCPD and Batman capture the Riddler, it feels like it's wrapping up. The movie's over and then you just have this whole sequence in the movie and I'm like, oh shit, yeah, this is where the other like half hour of the movie is. Then we get a scene in Arkham Asylum. Okay. There's a cellmate next to Edward Nashton who's trying to befriend Edward Nashton, and he is listed in the credits as Unseen Arkham Prisoner, and it's played by Barry Keoghan, is going to be the Joker. He's the Joker, okay. He can't be any worse than Jared Leto, but I really gotta see what they do with the Joker. I mean, nothing in my head is ever going to compare to Heath Ledger. Joaquin Phoenix is really good as Arthur Fleck / the Joker, but to me, we didn't really need a Joker origin story as good as Joker was and as good as Joaquin was as the Joker. Those two are still the ultimate Jokers to me, even if the Joker movie didn't need to happen. And I love Jack Nicholson as Joker. It's just, I don't know. I'm not 100% on board, but we've only seen 30 seconds of Joker. Like, he's already locked up. Like, I love the idea that Batman already caught him and he's locked up in Arkham Asylum, but we know Joker's gonna escape. It's the Clown Prince of Crime. I don't know if they're gonna use him in the second one or if they're gonna save him for the third one. I would assume they're gonna save him for the third one. And so Batman and Catwoman part ways, and that is the end of the movie, and that is the Batman. A very big and sweeping, epic, neo-noir that does dive a little bit too far into superhero movie territory in the last 20 minutes. Still really enjoyed a lot of it. Had some of my favorite scenes in a Batman film, some of my favorite plot points in a Batman film. Some of it, thinking about it now, doesn't really make all that much sense, and it's not as involving as I think it actually thinks it is. It's a very straightforward detective story, but it's an interesting detective story, and that's what kept me engaged throughout the entire 3-hour runtime. So guys, I hope you really enjoyed The Batman. Hope you really enjoyed the spoiler talk video. If you have seen The Batman, drop your favorite scenes from the movie since this is spoilers down in the comments section below. I'll leave my link to my website in the description below and the link for my spoiler-free review of The Batman at the end of this video. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. My name is Alex Madden, and I'll see you at the movies somewhere.